This is Coast to Coast AM with Ian Punnett.
Well, we'll grab a couple of calls, at least before the top of the hour. We'll see how many we can get in for Robert Chapman, who's the editor of the International Forecaster, a compendium of information on business, finance, economics, socio-political issues. He also has an extensive background in counterintelligence, which comes in handy when you're looking at these global pieces moving around the giant chessboard that is our world. We'll come back. Your questions, your comments, and if you go online, you can link up to Robert Chapman by going online at coasttocoastam.com. This is Ian Punnett. Robert Chapman of the International Forecaster, let me ask you a question. You were talking before about the difference between the real numbers and the reported numbers, right? So inflation might be reported officially at 2.5 or whatever it was, but then unofficially it might be more like 8, right?
Correct.
Is it possible that if the Dow drops from wherever it is roughly right now, 10.4, down to, say, into the 8,000 mark, that would actually be better for our economy in 2010 if it were an authentic 8,500 as opposed to a propped up 10.4?
I think it would be. I think it would make people think more deeply. I think it might push lenders to lend. Lenders are not lending. They've dropped their year-to-year lending by about 18%, and right now it's almost impossible to get a loan.
Especially if you're a small business, a small to medium-sized business.
Well, that's 90% of what they lend is to those companies as well as individuals. And if you can believe this, they're asking for 50% collateralization in cash. So if you go in and ask for a $100,000 loan, they want you to have a compensating balance of $50,000 plus other collateral as well. Well, most companies can't do that.
Right.
And so there's virtually no lending going on.
That virtually guarantees that they're not risking anything. And what we need, in fact, is we need them to loan money so that these small businesses can expand to become medium businesses. The medium businesses can expand to become large businesses. They hire more people. They start giving out real jobs, and they use up some of this commercial real estate.
70 to 90% of the people who are hired by small companies. And so what you're having here is strangulation. How can the economy expand when you've got those kind of rules going on? And who do most of the helping of money and credit, who did it go to? It went to the very lenders that caused the problem in the first place.
Yeah, that's a whole other show. Let's go to Roy, first-time caller line in North Carolina on Coast to Coast for Robert Chapman.
Hi, guys. Great info. But I feel the elephant in the room is that Americans have come to hate and despise good fundamental labor. And hence, even the good fundamental laborers, we have nearly killed the entire means of production. You know, we've killed our manufacturing, our big manufacturing, almost all, even the steel industry. And America occupies the virtual paradise of Earth, the temperate zone with all raw materials. I feel this started like 30 years ago with Ronald Wilson Reagan, 666, raising payroll taxes outrageously. We've squeezed farmers, construction workers down to the bare bones.
Well, I don't know about the... let's put the Reagan thing off the table for the moment and say, what about this? What if it... And Robert, I'd be curious to see what your reaction is to this. I've heard some people say that the reason why we've lost our labor force and why factories began to close and why we still have jobs that go unfilled is that there was a shift mid-20th century into a belief that there was something shameful about trade schools, that everybody had to go to college, when college really isn't meant for everybody. And for that matter, that we started, we began to look down our nose at good, clean labor like plumbers, electricians, construction workers, and we began to think of that as unskilled or something that was below our children, something to be ashamed of. And that there's something that we are still recovering from that idea. Nobody gives birth to a child and says, I hope he grows up to be a tradesman, when that may be just exactly what that kid would be great at and just what society needs.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And that was the salvation of part of any population, was to have that group of people who could create things. And yes, we've been going away from that. Everybody has to go to college. My feeling is more than half of the people in college don't belong there.
Right.
And if you notice, historically, we can go back 50 years, that approximately, depending upon the university, about 45 to 50% of freshmen graduate, and that's not very good. And there's a lot of reasons why. But I think the biggest reason for the problems of manufacturing, and that is a factor, but the biggest reason is free trade, globalization, offshoring, and outsourcing. That's where the real problem has come in. And it's very, very profitable for transnational corporations to take factory A out of the United States and hire somebody in China to do the work. And the profits that they get from the export of those products back to the United States and Europe go into an offshore account, and they don't pay any taxes on them. So it's win-win for the manufacturers. So something has to be constructed to stop that, and it's called tariffs on goods and services, and that's the solution.
All right. Let's get to Joan in Anchorage, Alaska, on Coast to Coast for Robert Chapman. Joan?
Hello, Ian and Robert. I want to know what you feel about terrorism in the because I have an idea on it, how to correct it and stop it.
Terrorism, did you say?
Terrorism, yes.
Not tourism.
I think very quickly, I think you should give us your idea.
Well, I don't know if I should say it over the phone. It might influence the enemy.
Well, that'll be your choice, Joan. What will you choose?
Because I'd love to hear it, because any kind of solution's good. Because I don't think many of us have solutions. So
go ahead, Joan. I'll make it short here. If you don't want to, I'll be happy to move on. You tell me.
Okay, the idea is to warn the people that the next time there's any terrorism, we're going to retaliate by eliminating all the mosques each time.
By eliminating what? I'm sorry, mosques?
Yeah, the mosques.
What kind of mosques would you choose?
The first one would be the one that they all bow down to.
Okay. That does not put us into the realm of terrorists ourselves. If we anytime we go after the innocent in the name of the guilty, aren't we creating more injustice?
No one would be killed.
Okay. Robert Chapman, you're the international forecaster. Would that work?
I don't think so. I don't. I think those kind of things just inflame even more the opposition. The opposition is there because we're occupying their countries, and that's the main reason.
No, I can't imagine that in the reverse, if they decided to knock out a church or a cathedral because a Christian did something that they didn't like, how she would feel about that. But let's get to Dan in Portland in the time that we have left. One of our last callers tonight on Coast to Coast for our annual prediction show, but this time from the professionals, the economists. Say, Dan?
Good evening, gentlemen, and Coast listeners. Thank you for adding to the dialogue of my life. I guess the reason why I called and what I told the screener, I don't know her name, it wasn't Tom, it was the female, was I wanted to talk about believing hard, but first, before I ask my question, I would like to make a statement about services. I mean, if you look at like what the last caller talked about is terrorism and mosques and stuff, and I don't want to go there because people can believe whatever they believe. Hopefully they don't believe too hard. But what in America happens is because of terrorism, there is an economy that's a service economy. And maybe in the financial system, really what the financial system does is they provide services. And if the level of services that aren't controlled by the financial system are provided by somebody else, then I mean maybe that's why the bubble popped. And I guess my question for Robert is, and I don't know if you use software to do your forecasting, but I think if you did, and you know, how much weight in the algorithm is attributed to believing hard and the services that are capable of being provided to that level of believing hard, whatever that is. I don't know, gentlemen, it's late at night.
Yeah, I'm not sure I quite follow. Let's see if Robert follows that. Robert?